Hello and welcome to the webinar for Visions for Unit 3. These 8 lessons begin on the second Sunday of Ordinary Time, January 17th, 2021, and run through the third Sunday in Lent. So before we begin, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you have your student lessons, that nest, with this lesson on the cover. If you also have a copy of the WCBT, the What the Church Believes and Teaches Handbook, we'll refer to that a number of times in the webinar. Also, in this unit, you either have your traditional teaching pages, or teaching guide, which are typically used in parish or school settings. But this year, for parents who are teaching remotely at home, we also have, I'll click through here, our 2-page parent teaching pages, which are available on our website at gospelweeklies.com. And you go to, at the top of the page, there's a browse window. You go to resources by level, and then you choose, for this example, the visions level, and the parent teaching pages, the assessments, everything that you'll need for teaching your lesson is available there. But let's go. You've got all your materials in front of you. Let's talk briefly before we dive into the lessons, just a note about preparing a prayer space. And whether you're meeting in a typical classroom setting or teaching at home, you'll want to prepare that prayer space for gathering and closing prayer time and for proclaiming the gospel. And this space can be simple. Gather a Bible, a candle and lighter or matches, a cross or crucifix, and a small cloth in that Sunday's liturgical color. And that may be found in the bottom band on the cover of every lesson. Obviously, this one is Ordinary Time. And so you just need a small piece of green cloth. You could even use a napkin in a pinch, but just, just a small covering that you put over a box or small plastic bin that you could house all of the materials for your prayer space. But it just helps the students reinforce their understanding of the liturgical calendar. Colored felt works great too. And your director of religious education in your parish can be a resource for you for that. Your prayer space is even more important in this unit, both for continuing or establishing classroom routine, as well as a regular prayer space. Vision students can certainly be taking an active role in setting up this space, as well as offering their own prayer intentions during the opening and closing prayers. And this is the backbone of every Pflaum lesson, along with the Sunday Gospel, but even more so during Lent, as we were encouraging the students to pay special attention to the regularity of their prayer routine and model this behavior by not rushing the opening or closing prayer service, nor the prayer ritual before proclaiming the gospel. As we go through the lessons, I want to note a few things that are new to this year. One are QR codes. They will link you directly to videos that are related to activities or stories or articles. They also may link to our website, specific places like lesson updates, which include more detailed directions for project assembly. I also want to note our Eucharist quotes that you will see in light blue in every lesson. Make sure to read those aloud during class and encourage the students to share them with their families. Also, the With My Family and Friends box, a weekly prayer, question, and activity related to the Sunday Gospel. Just a note, quickly in the guides here. In both guides, there's just a little section here that will help you plan your whole lesson. You've got your scripture background, the connection of that Sunday Gospel to the catechism. Also here, if you want just a synopsis, quick peek at what materials that you'll need for this lesson, the student lesson, obviously the page that they'll be referencing in the handbook, as well as a CD and just other materials that you'll need. I have the list here of the items that they need for the prayer space, and also to queue up music on the Pflaum CDs. Okay, all right. Often you're going to need Bibles for lookup activities, and I'll note that specifically in the different lessons as we go through. There are also things that you'll note in this section too. If there's a particular project, like especially like a cutout project, we may indicate that it'd be a good idea to set up a sample before you start class. All right. Just other couple notes. There are free online seasonal activities available for every level. Activity sheets, Catholic background pages, saints and feast features, prayers, etc. And those again are available at gospelweeklies.com. Go to that top browse menu and down to resources by level and then visions. If you have any questions, you identify any errors, or you have story ideas, you can always contact us directly, the editorial department, at editor@pflaum.com. That's editor@pflaum.com. pflaum.com. I think I said that incorrectly the first time, sorry. Let's move on to the first lesson. All right, so if you get these lessons in front of you, this is January 17th, 2020, the first lesson in Unit 3. The theme for this lesson is Jesus calls his first followers. And this activity is that God also is calling each of us to a particular vocation. And there's just a survey of different jobs and vocations that someone may be called to. We also highlight here the Catholic faith word, vocation, and that definition is listed inside of the lesson. I'll note that again when we go and come upon it inside the lesson. The article for this week is about Father Rutilio Grande, a friend of St. Oscar Romero, who was murdered. After you read this article, discuss how the people reacted to the example and life of Father Rutilio and his death. And that's just a note. You'll see in most of the stories, this is just a housekeeping note, that if you have students who are volunteering to read aloud, that you just take turns and switch readers at this bold type. And we do our best to divide up the story or article evenly. Note here to spend some time with the talk questions at the end, and that will lead us into the discussion of the Sunday Gospel in which Jesus calls his first disciples. Again, a note like the cover activity that we are also called to a vocation by Jesus. All right. One note here, if you look here at the bottom, there's your cue to have the students take out their WCBT Catechism Handbook, What the Church Believes and Teaches. And there will be a page prompt here. These are for the study of baptism, holy orders, and matrimony. And the students have learned about these sacraments, but then this review is asking them to consider how the sacraments call us to live holy lives. So when we turn to the next page, the Our Catholic Faith feature usually has a connection to the Sunday Gospel or something to do with the Mass. Sunday Gospel or the first or second reading. I should clarify that. Note here, the Catholic faith word that we discussed on the cover is noted here. We don't usually highlight it twice, but because we started that discussion of vocation in our cover activity, we noted it there as well. All right. Just a note here specifically about the QR codes. Normally we don't include this many different links to videos, but these are unique stories about people who are living a religious vocation, but also have another talent that they share. For the example of Father Jonkis, there is a link to a hymn that he wrote during the pandemic, and you can listen to that here. I'd encourage you maybe to have the students either share these at home, or maybe you can listen to one together in class. A note here just about that Eucharist quote that I mentioned before we started with the lessons. All right, so this activity, the disciples in Sunday's Gospel respond positively and immediately to Jesus' call. But this is a challenge to the students to consider how they respond in difficult situations. The prayer for this week, just a note, the week of prayer for Christian unity is January 18th through 25th this year, and to celebrate this prayer service together. Yes, and I also wanted to note this one last item that's common to all of the lessons, the With My Family and Friends box, and have them share that with their with the parents. A note here too, this particular QR code will take a parent directly to the parent teaching pages that I noted at the beginning, that 2-page lesson plan. Also, it will take them to assessments and those supplemental activity pages as well. All right, let's go on to the second lesson in this unit. This is the third Sunday in Ordinary Time. The theme of this lesson is Jesus calls us to serve. So these are a continuation of those Gospels about Jesus calling his disciples and also calling us. All right, activity prep, make sure that you have access to Bibles, or if you're working at home with your student, have access to an online Bible for the lookup activity later in the lesson. The cover, if you permit phones in class, direct the young people to take a look at their recent text messages and ask them, how quickly do you respond to texts from parents, friends, and others? And consider if God texted you, how quickly would you answer? And read the directions aloud at the top of the page here. And to consider the calls that they remember, that they most remember and respond to. And to consider the different ways that they are being called. They may not even think that they have been called to a vocation. All right. This article, just a note, it can be hard for young people to see themselves as called, as I just noted. This story talks about Pope Francis when he was young and how he was called by God in many ways and over several years. That a calling isn't necessarily like a lightning bolt. It can happen over time. The gospel, Sunday gospel for this week is Jesus calls 4 fishermen. They are disciples and early leaders in the church. And this leads us to a discussion of the connecting gospel and doctrine, who leads in God's kingdom, a discussion both about Jesus' disciples, as well as how people are called now. And that's part of the discussion that you would have here with these talk questions. A note about the gospel, that's the Catholic faith word in this lesson. The WCPT, this is the time for the students to take out this book. Page 10, this is the significance of Jesus as the Messiah and how it explains to the students historically how long people had been waiting for a Messiah. Page 23 is also part of this lesson. How is Jesus present to us in the Eucharist? Right. The Our Catholic Faith feature, a highlight of the Eucharistic prayer and how that fits into the Mass. Catholic leader, this is the lookup activity, Living the Gospel. Who is Jesus? As recounted in the Gospel of Mark. They'll need the Bibles here or access to online Bible lookup. Right. Give them some time to work on that. It may be also something that you want to split between partners. and then share as a large group. This week, January 27th, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And this is a feature about Father Patrick Desbois, who has written a book about the Holocaust by bullets, the number of people who were killed actually before the people who were killed in concentration camps. Just there's a short video that kind of explains the work that he does to find the unmarked mass graves of the Jews who were murdered. There's a highlight here. The US Catholic bishops speak out against racism. There's a prayer card here that I would encourage you to have the students bring up and print out if they're able to, or to bookmark it on their phones or on a laptop so that they can share that prayer, and have a discussion about why racism is a sin, and talk a little bit about the prejudices, or have them consider privately even some of the prejudices that they might have about people or groups. All right, let's go to the third lesson of the 8 lessons in this unit. This is the fourth Sunday in Ordinary Time. The theme is Jesus is driven by the power of God's love. Again, for lesson prep, there's a Bible lookup activity in this lesson. Have access to Bibles, or again, the online Bible site so they can look up citations. The cover of this activity is Jesus teaches and heals. In Mark's gospel, he shows us Jesus' healing power through stories, through miracle stories, healing stories. The article for this week is you'd want to introduce the story by reminding the young people that February, which we turned the calendar over this week, that February is Black History Month. This article not only fits into what they're likely learning in their social studies curriculum, but also connects with the healing mission of Jesus, which is the focus of this Sunday's gospel. And we'll flip to that. This is about the bus boycotts in Montgomery and the Women's Political Council. All right. The Sunday gospel here is in the first chapter of Mark. Jesus teaches with authority. His healing power is revealed when he commands an unclean spirit out of a man. The doctrine is that Jesus' healing work continues, and that healing power is for everyone. No one is left outside of Jesus' love. And page 24 in the Catechism Handbook is a discussion of the sacraments of healing and how they restore our relationship with God and with one another. So this is a focus on the sacraments of reconciliation and of anointing of the sick. The Catholic faith word this week is sacraments of healing. All right. Again, this feature, our Catholic faith feature, usually addresses the Sunday scriptures, giving background or context as it does this week, or it highlights a part of the Mass. This week it is about Galilee, Jesus' home territory, the place where he first called his disciples. All right. This Sunday we talked about Jesus heals a man with an unclean spirit. He is being influenced by something outside of his control. This activity asks, what is the spirit of advertising? Sunday's gospel is about a man with an unclean spirit, a negative influence, and advertising can influence the students in the same way, especially if we're not aware of its influence. Advertising today can look more like real or non-commercial information, like blogs, social media posts, etc., and can have an even greater effect than traditional messages, TV commercials, magazines, ads. And this activity is just to have the students assess what they think about advertising messages. and to have them consider what sort of influence they may have over them. Okay. Challenges them to do watching of TV, but that they actually have to watch commercial TV. That they can't just pass through the commercials, fast forward, or watch on a streaming service with no commercials. Let's see. We go on to the next activity. This is a Catholic leader feature. We try with page 8s to have a balance with prayer services, contemporary Catholic leaders, like in this case, review activities, or saints. This particular Catholic leader is about Misericordia in Chicago. It provides programming, housing, and work programs for people who have developmental and physical disabilities. There are 2 videos here. Note, this one is a 10-minute video, and we specifically noted it here. I really try to select things that are 5 minutes or less, especially if you choose to watch them in class, because the idea is not to be sitting there watching a video. It's just to enhance and reinforce what they're learning in a different way. I encourage you to have them watch them with their parents, because if you are meeting in school or in your parish, invariably the parents are going to ask, what did you learn today? And they can share what they learned and also reinforce their own learning by watching it again with their parents, or hearing about this organization or topic another time. All right, so let's move on to the 5th Sunday in Ordinary Time. This is our 4th lesson. We're halfway through the unit. The theme is Jesus teaches and heals. We're continuing that theme in Mark's Gospel, and give them this is more of a discussion activity, and working on empathy and how do you feel, and how do you help someone who's facing something challenging. This certainly has been a time of challenge. So give the students some time to discuss. This can be a time to split into partners or small groups if perhaps people are a little hesitant to share in the large group. If you're meeting at home and your student maybe doesn't want to discuss that with you, you could also maybe do FaceTime or Zoom with another friend who's in class, and they can do this activity together. That also kind of mixes it up a little bit. Let's see. This activity is a choose your own ending story, and I'm going to pop to the next page so you can see that. So read the story aloud together and give the students time to discern the most likely resolution to the story, or what they think is most likely to happen. Or if none of these sound authentic to them, how would they rewrite the story or change the details of one of these responses? Get them engaged in debating these. All right. The Sunday Gospel for this week: Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law, and in so doing, there's a discussion of how he is building a wider reputation as a healer and as a teacher. The doctrine: Jesus leads by example, and through his miracles, we are also called to heal where we can. We don't have that healing power, but we all have the power to bring healing to different situations. One thing that will be something that the students will start to note in these Gospels during Jesus' ministry, if you turn to pages 41 and 42, prayer was a crucial part of Jesus' ministry. There's many notes in Scripture where he goes off on his own to pray. And on these pages, the students will learn about 3 different ways to pray. All right, and let's move on to the Our Catholic Faith feature. This again is some background about the gospel, and about the Catholic faith word in this lesson is disciple. And who are Jesus' disciples? Those he called directly, that we've heard about in these Sunday Gospels, and those who respond to his teaching, like Simon Peter's mother-in-law, and like us. All right, let's go to the Living the Gospel activity. This is an application of the Sunday Gospel. And one of the ways, as I mentioned before, We can't do healing miracles, but one of the ways that we can bring healing is by helping to resolve conflict. And this is an activity in conflict resolution. There are different activities or different situations. And then if you go to the next page, there are options for each of these situations. So like number 5, a certain student always pushes ahead in the lunch line. What is the best way to resolve that point of conflict? And some of them are harder than others, but all hopefully part of an authentic experience the students would have had, something familiar to them. All right. Again, the Gospels note frequently that Jesus moves away from the crowds, especially after preaching or healing, to be alone and to pray. So this is an encouragement to the young people to hold, encourage the students after you do this prayer starters activity to hold on to this page to expand their prayer practice when Lent begins on February 17th. So that's also a note, a reminder that Ash Wednesday starts the next week. All right, let's move on to that lesson. Ash Wednesday is on February 17th this week. This is the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time, the 5th lesson in this unit. The theme is Jesus shows that God's love is for everyone. Just a prep, if you like, you can cut out and clip your own set of cards that's at the end of this lesson. You only need one set of cards for the class, so you don't need to prep them for all of the students. Obviously, they will need to prep their own if they're doing their lessons at home. The cover activity is a Lenten an Ash Wednesday prayer service. Begin your class with this prayer. Encourage your students to attend Ash Wednesday services or a live stream service, whatever the current practice is in your area. Let's see. Oh, and also as a part of this is they write down a Lenten commitment. All right, let's move to the story for this week. This story is about how people are insiders and outsiders in friend groups, and that sets us up for the Sunday Gospel, which is in which Jesus heals a man with leprosy. And to point out to the students that this is not just about a physical healing, but also about bringing this man back into community after he's been separated from friends and family because of this contagious disease. The Catholic faith word for this week is compassion, and that Jesus has compassion for the man. He stops and heals him. Sorry, I've lost my place here. The doctrine here is a discussion of how reconciliation is also a way of healing, which brings people back into a right relationship with God. All right. And one of the ways that Catholics show that they are a community is by celebrating the sacrament of Eucharist together. And turn to page 12 to focus on what it means to say that we are part of the church, the body of Christ. All right, let's move on to the Our Catholic Faith feature. That just a note about that, what the church believes and teaches. The whole lesson is typically best taught from page 1, the cover activity, to page 8. And we will note that in the guide if you ever need to jump back and forth due to a cutout activity or something that kind of changes the flow of a regular lesson. So I just wanted to point that out to you, that if you were thinking that you were going to save that WCBT activity, it often is a bridge from, so we've got an introduction to the gospel on the cover, a story or article that kind of primes the pump for a discussion of the Sunday gospel, the gospel itself, its relationship to the doctrine of the church. And then the WCBT is often a bridge into the Our Catholic Faith feature. So this makes the most sense and has the most continuity if it's taught pages 1 through 8, except where noted in the teaching guide or the parent teaching pages. So just a quick note about that. Again, so this is an expanded conversation about what you started in the Catechism Handbook. about being a part of the body of Christ, and that Holy Communion brings us together in community. And this is part of the importance of attending Mass regularly, being a part of this holy community. As we head into Lent this week, we typically return to a study of the commandments. Usually in the fall, we talk about the first 3 commandments and our relationship with God. And then as we enter Lent, we often talk about commandments 4 through 10 in how we are commanded to be in right relationship with each other. So this week, we focus on the 8th commandment, do not lie, do not bear false witness. All right, so there is an activity here. This is that card prep note that I made at the beginning of this lesson. So you can go ahead and cut out the red cards and the purple cards ahead of time. It'll just save you a little hassle when you're actually doing the activity during your lesson. And there are discussions of how to play the game. All right, let's move on. We are now in Lent. Just a note here, if you're using a cloth as a part of your prayer space that you want to switch to violet for Lent. The theme of this lesson, the 6th lesson in this unit, is Lent prepares us to celebrate Easter. This is a time to continue thinking about those Lenten resolutions. The students wrote down a commitment as a part of the Ash Wednesday prayer service. If they would like to do more considering about that or change it, this is a good time to do that. These particular Lenten commitments are primarily based on our senses of sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. It's an activity to notice these gifts and to be grateful for them. All right, let's turn to the story for this article. This is a story about, about prejudice and violence against a different religious group. The story, I would encourage the students to take turns reading aloud, switching at these bold blue sentences. It's also a good time to take a pause and ask for questions. All right. Take some time to discuss these discussion questions. The answers to these are always included in the teaching guide, but most of them are discussion based. All right, the gospel for this Sunday is Jesus faces temptation in the desert. Note for the students that Jesus spends 40 days in the desert and that Lent is also 40 days. The doctrine is that Lent is a time to grow closer to God. And the questions here are to prompt discussion of making commitments to grow and to change. The WCBT or the handbook focus for this week, you will have the students review and read the sections on the 10 Commandments, on the works of mercy, and of Catholic social teaching. And they will apply those to the gospel activity on pages 6 and 7. On the Our Catholic Faith feature, Lent is a time that we study the commandments, but also God's relationship with our Old Testament ancestors. This week, it's God's covenant with Noah. And this will be a story that the students will be familiar with. All right. The question is, can your class be convicted of being Christian? And set up the classroom like a courtroom and challenge the students. How would you prove to someone that you're a Christian? And work through this activity together. All right, and you'll see here, the Christians are guided by the 10 Commandments, the works of mercy, and Catholic social teaching. So that'll get them, that WCBT review will get them ready for this activity. All right. And the closing activity is just some examples of different ways that students can continue they have their Lenten commitments. When we talk about fasting and prayer and almsgiving, if the students would like to do a project where they are contributing money or time to a particular organization, here are a few ideas. One other thing I wanted to note here is this QR code right here, that we talk about fasting and eating simple meals to be in solidarity, especially with some of our brothers and sisters who don't have enough to eat. And some of these recipes from Catholic Relief Services give examples of meatless meals, as well as meals that are just perhaps a little more simple. Right, let's go on to the next lesson. This is the second Sunday of Lent, our 7th lesson in this unit. We have 2 lessons left. The theme for this lesson is Jesus shows us our future. This is the transfiguration of Jesus. And you're going to want to prep folding your cover. You'll see there's a drawing right here, an illustration of how to fold it. Basically what you're doing is drawing it together so that the purple arrows at the top and the bottom meet. And it'll show, well, a transformation. But don't tape it, because you're going to have to be able to unfold it, smooth it out so that you can read the article on pages 2-3. So just a note about that, so you don't get yourself in a bind. This story is about Sister Dorothy Stang, a missionary teacher in Brazil, who was murdered because of her work with the poor. This is a good opportunity to talk about vocation and to emphasize the learning that the students did at the beginning of this unit, that early discussion about vocation. All right, the gospel for this Sunday. In the Sunday Gospel, Jesus' friends see him transfigured. They see him as a fully divine person. The doctrine: Jesus is both fully divine and fully human, and his identities are revealed. His identity as a divine person is revealed in this Sunday's Gospel. We return back to the article about Sister Dorothy Stang in the WCBT portion of the lesson, and identify that she lived a virtuous life. And to look up the virtues and discuss how habits, such as those that we might develop during Lent, can lead us to leading a virtuous life. All right, let's go to our Catholic faith feature. Again, there's this focus in Lent on the Old Testament readings, and you'll either need to have Bibles. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that at the beginning of this. You'll either need to have Bibles or read this aloud from your classroom Bible. All right, so this is the second week of study about God's commitments to our Old Testament ancestors, and this week it's his covenants with Abraham. All right. Bullying is something that many students will experience either directly or as a bystander. And through this activity, it will be, it's a study of transformation, of transfiguration. How can they change or transform a negative situation like bullying? And it's identifying the places in which they see bullying, the ways that bullying manifests itself, either physical or emotional, verbal, and then taking a pledge to speak out against bullying, certainly not participating in it, and speaking up. All right, just a note here, the first chapter of Mark's Gospel, which we have read from for the last 5 Sundays, gives the students that day-by-day look at the first week in Jesus ministry. So this is an opportunity to do a review. I would encourage the students to work on this puzzle individually, but we're not testing faith here. We just want to make sure that we can identify where the students maybe need a little more review or help. And so I'd encourage you to have them work on their own, but if that becomes too frustrating, to offer clues or have them work with partners. All right. This is the final lesson in the unit, lesson 8, the third Sunday of Lent on the 7th. The theme for this week is Jesus is the real temple. This is a continuation of the study of the 10 Commandments, and this is a link of where each of the 10 Commandments is discussed in the catechism. So you can explain to the students, if they don't already know this, that the CCC stands for the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And so they will just plug in the related letters next to the corresponding commandments. And they can work on that individually, or they can work in pairs if they need any sort of reference. They shouldn't, because everything they need should be on the page. But if they want to reference the commandments in their catechism handbook, it's on pages 32 through 35. All right. The article, in preparation for the Sunday Gospel and the study of the commandments, read the story about divorce and how it affects a peer. The Gospel this week is about Jesus in the temple, and the discussion of the commandment is about how we deal with anger. All right. So again, the Sunday Gospel is Jesus cleanses the temple, and it's a rare display of anger. The article talks about how this young man deals with his own feelings of anger and sadness upon learning that his parents are divorcing. Okay. The doctrine for this week associated with the gospel is that Jesus' power is love, and we live in his love when we keep the 10 Commandments. All right, here. Again, we can do small group work on the 10 Commandments, pages 32 through 34. And this is also the Catholic faith word for this week. All right, our Catholic faith feature for this week is a third week of focus on the Old Testament and God's relationship. This week, it's his relationship with the Israelites, and how the 10 Commandments made the Israelites God's people. All right, that gospel activity, again, tying back to the Sunday Gospel, that Jesus has a rare display of anger. How do we deal with anger? And some things should make us angry, and discuss some of those things and how we handle that and how we channel those feelings into more positive results. All right, so there are, two scenarios here. This is the kind of the process of working through identifying what makes them angry, a way in which they express their anger. And then there's a couple scenarios to work through. All right, this is an attitudes question, a student response feature. And students respond to which of the 10 Commandments is the most challenging one to keep. And so the students got to respond to that. Have your student go through, identify which one they maybe relate to the most, but to respond to this question for themselves. A note about this, if your students would like to participate in a future student response question, like attitudes, or if they want to share something that they're working on, a service project, or something similar, to definitely share those with us at editor@pflaum.com. So editor@pflaum.com for comments, questions, want to remind you too about those lesson update section. If you find errors or responses that aren't included with a puzzle or an activity, you can find that at gospelweeklies.com /lesson-updates. Again, the parent teaching pages and the teaching guides are also available on the website if you need a reference or a replacement copy. And that takes us through the end of Unit 3, and we'll pick up in Unit 4 with the fourth week of Lent through the end of the school year in the Easter season. Thank you so much. Blessings to you and your students.
Hello, my name is Erica Di Urquidi. I am the bilingual editor for Visions. I would like to talk to you very briefly about our bilingual lessons for Unit 3. The Visions teaching guide is available in Spanish for you and for your catechists. It is not going to come with your bilingual lessons when you receive your shipment though. If you would like to have a printed copy sent to you, you must ask your sales rep and they will help you get one. If you don't, this Spanish teaching guide is available on our website, gospelweeklies.com. If you visit our website, you click the browse button on top and you go to Recursos en Español, Spanish resources. Here you will find the Spanish teaching guide so you can download it and print it. You will also find the Spanish parent teaching pages to distribute to your Spanish speaking parents if they are teaching the lesson at home. You can find the weekly videos in Spanish for all your lessons, your assessments, everything you need to teach the lesson in Spanish or to share with your Spanish-speaking parents is gonna be here. Something that I would like to point out for this lesson, if you go here in Recursos en Español to the section called Actualizaciones para la lección, which is lesson updates, you will find a mistake I made on the teaching guide. Here you will find the page where I made this mistake on page 23 for the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time. I labeled this activity here wrong. It is correct on the lesson, I just labeled it wrong here. It says, ¿qué significa realmente no matarás? It should say, ¿qué significa realmente no mentirás? Which is very different. I apologize for my mistake, but that's why we have this lesson update section on our website in case we make a mistake or in case we have answers for puzzles and word search. Everything is going to be here in case there's something additional that would like to communicate to you. If you have any questions, any comments about the bilingual lessons, please send me an email at editor@pflaum.com. And God bless you with Unit 3. Thank you so much.